and immediately, or immediately and ultimately, are the only ground upon which the human enterprise can be validated and sustained. Simple. That's the first message, first part of it. And there follows from that religion is, in the mind of Isaiah, is identified with an attitude of the mind, not the ceremonial, not the ritual, not, it's curious too, not the act, but it is that which structures the act, says Isaiah. And the third aspect of his message is that pride and arrogance, dependent upon human strength and human ability, is sin against God. Now, that's what he's insisting upon. Now, I'd like to spell it out and break it down a little, but if the time runs out, I have said it. The prophets of Israel were intimately tied up with the movements of the periods in which they lived. They were involved in the social process, which is very, very important to remember. They interpreted Israel and its relationship to God, as to Jehovah, as a primary and personal covenantal relationship. And it's very important to hold that in mind, that for reasons that we cannot quite understand even to this day, in some strange and fascinating and yet miraculous manner, this group of people regarded themselves as being in some initially unique relationship with the Creator of their own lives and their little world and their little state. And we see the roots of it in the twilight of their history, in the covenant with Abraham. And that sense of covenant moves down across the pages of human history as a kind of Gulf Stream, giving a moderate temperature to all the surrounding landscape and countryside and continents. And we shall see when we deal with Deutero-Isaiah how this idea of covenant with Israel, this peculiar personal relationship that Israel had with Jehovah, finally becomes a relationship that all the world has with Jehovah. Now, fundamental to this concept, you see, of the relationship of a group of people to God is an interesting and significant philosophy of history. It is a philosophy of history which says that God is inside the historic process, that he's not outside of it, manipulating it, or unmindful of it. It isn't like the 18th or 19th century British philosophers who felt that God had wound the world up and sent it on its way, and he couldn't do anything until it ran down, so he could wait. The classic illustration, example of it is in one of the novels, you remember that, the Forsyth Saga man, what's his name? Galsworthy, thank you. One of the novels published after the death of Galsworthy, this lady is complaining to her mother because her husband is, everything that she wanted has disappeared from her, and now it seems that all is lost because her husband is losing his mind, and life has become a barren waste for her. And she says to her mother, I wonder where God is in all this business. And then she says, oh, I forgot. He can't be bothered with me and my little troubles. Mother, can't you imagine hearing God say to Gabriel, Gabriel, do you remember once upon a time there was a little speck of stardust that went off around a certain section of the universe, and it was such a pretty speck of stardust that we thought we would put something on it. I wonder how is that fungus getting along, that fungus that we call man, you know? An idea. And the amazing thing is that when human events are regarded merely in terms of events, when there is no end served by the relentless logic of human history except the logic of the event, it is saying, you see, that all of the possible interpretation that any aspect of human history can reveal is an interpretation that is locked in the agonizing grapple of the narrow bounds of antecedent and consequence. And that, in our time, is a rather dominating philosophy. It's a kind of interesting kind of materialism. And it is also, and I hope you will not misunderstand me, but it is also the very important aspect of what the philosophy of economic determinism, which is one of the basic insistences of Karl Marx's logic. But we don't have to put up straw horses. Where do you stand on it? How do you interpret the events of your life? How do you measure them? Do you live your life on the basis that all that there is to you and what you do is wrapped up in the movement, the isolated, circumscribed movement, pulse beat of your little life? Now, if you do, then you know, you see, that the very nature of life is of such that it is fixed. It is fixed. It's hard to say rationed, but it is fixed. It is finished. It is complete. And you know you can't do anything about anything anyway, so you don't try. What's coming to you, you're going to get. If my name is there, I can't run anyway. It's there. All the meaning of your life is wrapped up in the narrow time band of your antecedents and consequences. Now, there's another point of view, and this is the point of view of the prophet, and that is that human life, as well as the lives of nations, take place within a context that is dynamic. Dynamic. That always, when I am in the presence of any event, I am caught in an encounter with a series of potentials that spread out in the widest possible directions and with the most amazing variety of variation. So that if I am alert in the presence of the event, I seek to deal with the event in terms not merely of what it says, what it looks like, but in terms of what seems to me to be the dynamics of the event, the potentials of the event. Do you deal with the events of your life in that way? Do you believe that life is really dynamic? Dynamic? That it isn't quite finished yet? That not only are you involved always in a circling series of potentials, but that you are potential. You, potential. And no time band, no time interval is able quite to contain you and the dynamics of your life and your situation. You believe that? I wonder. seems, doesn't it? Let's think a little longer about it. It seems, doesn't it, that that's the way you deal with, on one level of your experiencing, that's the way you deal with events, isn't it? Haven't you realized that with reference to the simplest experiences of your life, that that no single event is quite able to deal with all of you? Now let's think now. Let's just think about it. We need not hurry. No event is quite able to deal with all of you. Can you think of a single thing you have ever done in all of your life that was a complete and satisfactory representation of you? Can you think of anything? Is there anything that you've ever done with reference to which you can say, well, this is it. I did it. And I am all present and accounted for in it. No. There's always some part of you that spills over, that can't quite get down in there. You know? Which means, and that part that spills over, you see, becomes the next basis around which more potential of you begins to be generated. And then that spills over. And then, isn't that true? I don't think a person who's sick can ever die until somewhere in his organism a decision is made, a conclusion is arrived at which says that all of me, the totality of my organism, is at last contained in the event. In the event. In the cholera or whatever it is. Now that's what the prophet Isaiah was telling his people. That you're running down to Egypt, trying to get them to sign a treaty with you. You're just running everywhere, getting all of these little states to organize themselves along with you in a revolt against Assyria. And you're so sure, so confident that all of the meaning of the events with which you are involved is wrapped up in the mere logic of the events themselves, that you say to yourselves, and I didn't know until I studied this last time, that the quotation is there. You say to yourself, let us eat, drink, rejoice. Tomorrow we die. Let us eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we die. It is all wrapped up in now. So what matters? We have repaired every one of the fences. We've done all that we can do because there is no meaning in human history that cannot be included in the formal discursive logic of my mind and the event. That's what America thinks today, too. If we can just get enough support in the world. If we can just line up enough people we do not have to put our minds on the dynamics of this century and the great upward surging pulse of the stirrings of the human spirit on this planet. We need not deal with the potentials. We need not concern ourselves with those dimensions of the contemporary scene which point inevitably to the unfolding of the spirit of man as it reaches out for clean air to breathe, for room to move. There was a time when that's what we wanted, what we had to have 150 years ago. But if we can do that in terms of the superficial events of the historic moment, we do not have to deal with the dynamics of the historic moment. Now, Isaiah didn't get very far with this. He tried to dramatize it. 3 whole years and 5 months, he just walked around scarcely without any clothes on, just up and down, so everybody could see him. And then they would say, well, why is that strange man dressed that way? Then that would be a chance for the explanation to be given, and the explanation would give him a chance to say his say. Now, he said, the penalty for all of this, the penalty for depending upon man's strength merely, is you depend upon man's strength. That's the penalty. Very interesting. What is the penalty? The penalty is that that's all you have. That's the penalty. Nothing tremendous about it. Just that's all you have. It's just in your own private life. You say, I don't need God. I don't need any other dimension. All of my life is just right here. I see. Now, your tragedy is that that's all there is to you. Just that. Just that. You know? I mean, that's the tragedy. The tragedy is that nothing ever happens. Nothing. You just shut it up. And that was the tragedy of Israel. Now, 2 other little things I want to say about the prophet. He had the logic of his idea that God is involved in the historic process, you see. And therefore, you relate yourself to God, not to the events. You relate yourself to God, not to the events. if you relate yourself to the events, you lose your mind. You'll just be ground to pieces. You can't take it. But relate yourself to the timeless, to the eternal. And then you ride with the whale. Or you go down, but it's all right. It's like the Cascade Eagle in Moby Dick, you know. The Cascade Eagle is the eagle that lives in the mountains. And when that eagle descends into the bottom of the gorge, he is higher than the highest soarer above the plains because his gorge is in the mountains. That's it. And you relate to the eternal. Now, therefore, every event is relevant. And he takes this idea and turns it on Assyria. And Assyria has been doing all this trouble, just killing people and wiping out. And what does he say about Assyria? Assyria is the avenging arm of Jehovah. That Assyria is the whip in the hands of Jehovah. And then a very curious thing happened to him because human beings are such tremendous things. When Assyria laid siege to Jerusalem, then it got out of hand. It's all right to take all these cities of Judah and all of that, but when it laid siege to Jerusalem, then because you did that, you stopped being a whip and thought you were the controller of the whip. And for that reason, you'll have to be punished. Now the other thing that the prophet had to say in this connection, I will give my message. I will seal my oracles and brood over a little group whom he calls his pupils. And I will transmit the insistences in my mind and heart to these pupils who sense and understand. And they will be the growing edge in the historic process. It's very interesting. And he couples with that notion and that insistence which he carried out the idea that inasmuch as all of human history is in God's hands and the creation of human life and all of life serves some purpose, the significance of which I may not quite understand, all of life, therefore, will not be destroyed. But there'll be a remnant, and here we get this great idea. See, what he says to, what he decides to do with his little group of disciples, he's going to give to them, you see, the very kernel of his idea, the concepts themselves, so that there would move down through the history of Israel this understanding, this insight about which we are reading today. Now, he was doing that. Now, on a wider canvas, God was doing something else to match it. And what was this God was doing? That there would be a remnant preserved. Everybody wouldn't be destroyed. There'd always be a remnant. And that remnant would be the rallying point for the new age and the new period. Yet all experience is an arch where through gleams that untraveled world, whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. Now, if you believe as Isaiah believed, then you know that the ultimate destiny of man is good. That the contradictions of life are not final contradictions. And that you will cast your vote on the side of the growing edge.